So I came up with this really neat idea for a video last night, and I wanted to talk about what the oldest movie I've ever seen is. So there's a couple distinctions that I want to make real quick. First off, when I say oldest movie, obviously that means year. I'm not counting things that I have watched way back when. So yes, I have seen Wizard of Oz, but I haven't watched it since I was like 4, and I don't really plan on rewatching it. I don't have any interest in it. Another distinction I want to make is that there are movies I have watched, but when I say watched, I mean more they're in the background, and every once in a while I look up. So if we're going by that, then the oldest movie I've ever seen is Invaders from Mars from 1953. It was on Amazon Prime. It was like 1 in the morning, and I was bored, and I was like, this looks interesting. I wonder what an old 50s sci-fi movie is like. Not all that entertaining. But if we want to go by movies I've actually sat through and watched the whole thing of, then it was a three-way tie between 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968, Planet of the Apes, also from 1968, and Night of the Living Dead, also from 1968. Until yesterday, when I watched something I'd been looking for and trying to find for months. I found it on digital and paid like $13 for it. And then I just found a 4-pack of all 4 movies for $26. So the way I look at it is I just paid $26 for 3 movies. That's the way I'm looking at it. The movie is Psycho from 1960. First of all, you're probably like, what are you talking about? Psycho is one movie. There's no sequels. There's 3 sequels. Psycho 2, Psycho 3, and Psycho 4, A New Beginning, or The Beginning. Yeah, just The Beginning. Haven't seen those. Don't know what the quality is. I've heard mixed things. This is not a review of Psycho. This is just a discussion of, the oldest movies I've seen. Obviously, when it comes to horror, I prefer slashers and kind of the classic slashers like, shocker, Halloween. And they're over there, so I'm just going to grab the figure. Or Friday the 13th. And even, just so I can show it off, A Nightmare on Elm Street or Freddy Krueger. I decided I wanted to replace the Freddy that I have. I had that I called him the Scooby-Doo monster Freddy. Since I had Jason and Michael in this, I think it's NECA? Something like that, action figure, I had to find Freddy, and I found him. It's not the one I wanted. I wanted the one from Dream Warriors, but Walmart was sold out, so I went to Target. They had the first movies. One. So, that is actually... So, Psycho, back to Psycho, is the oldest movie I've seen so far. And I'm not even gonna count Pinocchio or Lady and the Tramp. The reason being, I've never actually watched those movies, sat down and watched them. Yes, I've seen them at some point in my life, but again, that goes back to when I watched Wizard of Oz at 4 years old. I don't remember what the plot is. Therefore, I'm not going to say I've watched it if I don't remember it. Psycho, I watched. Night of the Living Dead, I watched. Planet of the Apes, you know that I've watched it. I did the entire original film series, the 5 movies there, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. If you follow my Instagram, I covered that like my 3rd movie or something like that, and I wasn't very nice to it, but I kind of got bored from it. But yeah, even 2001: A Space Odyssey, it's from 1968, so that it's a 60s movie. It's gonna be boring. I'd also like to point out that I'm not a huge black and white movie fan. So, long story short, in high school, I took a class called Cinematic Literacy with a teacher named Mr. Nash. loved Mr. Nash, loved The Class. What we did is we watched a film genre and then wrote about it. So, for example, the reason I got into horror was because of this class. He said we were going to watch horror movies for the next couple of weeks because it was in October. And I was like, hell no. And he said, you're watching them. And I said, okay, fine. So we watched Night of the Living Dead, Halloween, and The Conjuring. Night of the Living Dead, I was so on. Halloween, shocker, I watched it. I was like, whoa, this is really good. I fell in love. And The Conjuring, I thought it was good, but I'm not huge into ghost stories. I don't care for ghost stories, so I kind of skipped out on it. But obviously, Halloween being, and this is not all of them, being one of my favorite film franchises, just the Blu-rays that I have for the first one, the fifth one, the sixth one, and the 2018 reimagining, reboot, whatever you want to call it. So getting into horror, I'm like, I need to cover all of my bases. So I slowly started to pick stuff up, I picked up Friday the 13th, the first 8 movies. So that's part 1 through part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And then a friend of mine for Christmas bought me A Nightmare on Elm Street, the whole box set. So that's the first movie through Freddy vs. Jason. So I've been slowly getting all of the individual Blu-rays for the Halloween series. So as I was getting in more and more into horror movies, I started to think to myself, I need to watch some of the classics. I've already seen Night of the Living Dead. The Universal Monsters, those are really expensive. I've kind of held off as long as I can on those. But I was like, okay, you know what? I want to watch Psycho. I've never seen it. I've heard great things about it. Obviously, the movie's been parodied to death. You've seen it everywhere. You know the shower scene. You know the twist ending. I already knew all these things. But it wasn't knowing. Knowing the movie and how it's going to end is one thing, but experiencing it is a totally different thing. And I got mad because halfway through the thing cut out because it was on digital. My internet went out. I was like, what the? I got mad. So I was like, whatever, it saved where I was. I'll watch it again. So I played it. I watched it. And like I said, knowing how a movie goes, like I said, this might end up just being a review of Psycho. I'm not going to really talk too much, the factual stuff, who's in it, how much it made, how much it cost, and Rotten Tomato score, that kind of crap. I'll do the rest of that later. But here's how this movie goes. You know that there's a girl, she stops at the Bates Motel, she gets killed by presumably the mother of the owner, and then there's an investigation into what happened. More people die. I always thought it was always the one death in the movie. No. There's 2 from what I counted. There's the shower victim, the infamous shower victim everyone knows about, and the poor detective that no one ever talks about. Nobody ever talks about the guy. The guy died and no one brings it up anymore. It's always, oh, well, Janet Leigh's character died. Yeah, we know. What about that poor detective nobody knows about? Anyway, I digress. The other thing, though, about this movie is Psycho has been paid homage in all sorts of horror movies, including Halloween. Halloween named one of its characters Sam Loomis. Dr. Samuel Loomis, who was Janet Leigh's character's lover in this, Sam Loomis. It's not... There are theories. People say that the 2 are the same. I don't know if I totally agree with that. It could be, if people really wanted to go that far, and that's why he got into psychology, but yeah, I don't really know. I mean, look at it this way. To be a psychologist, you got to go to school for how long? And then 1963, Michael Myers kills his older sister Judith and then goes into the care of Dr. Loomis. I mean, I know back then you didn't go to college nearly as long as you go now. Trust me, I know. But still, I digress anyway. So, one of the better parts of this movie is just kind of the suspense. If you've never seen the movie, then you don't know the truth behind what's going on. Obviously, I did because I know about this movie. I've never seen it, but I know about it because of more other medias, you know. I'm pretty sure The Simpsons obviously has probably covered it at one point, you know, all that fun jazz. But to know that in the end, the mother has actually been dead for several years, which is revealed kind of like at the midway point of the movie by the local sheriff, and that he's trancing around dressed as his mother and killing people. I mean, you don't know these things. You don't. So watching it, it's like, holy shit, what did I just watch? That's what this movie does. That's why I'm proud to say this is the oldest movie I've ever actually watched. Not watched in the background, because that distinction goes to Invaders from Mars. Which also, weird suggestion. I don't know why. If you can find it, watch it. It's very weird. It's kind of boring, but very weird. I think everyone should experience at least one 50s sci-fi film. Definitely recommend Psycho. I will do a video talking about it in more depth at another point. But I just was like, wow, that'd be a really cool video to do. Talk about the oldest movie you've ever seen. That distinction now goes to Psycho. I will be definitely... So, one more thing I want to talk about is kind of why I cut down to a few days a week. I felt like I didn't have time to watch the things I wanted to watch. Not that I don't want to watch the ones that I've got coming up here, like Batman and Robin, Gremlins, X-Men Rogue, X-Men Days of Future Past. The movies I choose, I still want to watch them. But I found myself lately being in more of a mood for horror movies. So one thing I'm doing is watching through all of the big horror franchises. So I already finished Halloween. I watched Halloween through to the newest one from 2018, including H2O and Resurrection, which I think, being it was the first time I'd ever seen H2O, of actually a really good movie. And now I'm going to watch the Friday the 13th movies, probably skipping the reboot because I already watched it and I don't really care for it that much. And then I'll do the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and I think I'm going to watch these. Shockingly, I've watched like 3 a night lately, so I'm up to part 4 in Friday the 13th. And then probably by tomorrow, I'll be up to like part 8. I don't know. Depends on where we get with this. But yeah, no, I'm interested in the sequels to this. I don't know how I'm going to feel about them yet. But I definitely kind of think I'm going to be watching them. So if you have a chance, watch Psycho from 1960. It's totally worth it. Alfred Hitchcock is just... Well, I should have mentioned that probably. It's directed by Alfred Hitchcock, who actually the first movie of his I've ever watched. Is it? It might be. I don't know. We did a film noir unit in that cinematic literacy class, and I think we watched Rear Window, but the film noir portion was very boring to me. So yeah, Alfred Hitchcock classic. I don't think he has any involvement in the other 3 sequels. I think he's kind of uninvolved at that point, which is probably a good idea. So go watch him. Psycho 1, 2, 3, 4. Honestly, if you watch the first one, you're pretty much golden at that point. I am going to review X-Men Last Stand. Don't worry. I'm working on it. I've got it all reviewed. I just got to make the video next. So this was the important one. Alright guys, I'll see you later. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed what you just watched. If you're interested in more of my videos, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notifications every time I upload a video. And also, if you could, just leave a like down below and maybe even consider commenting, telling me things I did good, things I did bad.